The story that we're going on the road for cover these General Motors layoffs, which to me is the definition of the disappearing middle class and the controlled demolition of the middle class. So General Motors has to lay off 15,000 people after getting a $55 billion bailout many years ago from the federal government. Only in America, you give a company $55 billion and then they lay off 15,000 people years later because there's no strings attached with the bailout. And by the way, I mean, shockingly, here's the list. Democrat Debbie Stabenow, senator from Michigan, she got $20,400 from General Motors in 2012. She just got $29,540 from General Motors in 2018 for her re-election. You got Debbie Dingell, a congresswoman from Michigan. 2014, she got $17,600 from General Motors. 2016, she got $10,500. 2018, she got $10,000. Got Dan Kildee, represents Flint. 2014, $9,000 from General Motors. 2016, $9,125. 2018, $10,425. Then we go to Tim Ryan of Ohio, where another factory is being closed down of General Motors. 2014, he got $9,000. 2016, he got $8,500. 2018, he got $7,020. Beto O'Rourke in 2018 got $13,232 from General Motors. Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election, $86,616. 2016, Bernie Sanders, $32,819. Chuck Schumer in 2016 got 10,000 buckos. 10,000 buckos. So, our politicians are getting quite a lot of money. Oh, excuse me. It's not directly from General Motors. It's from individuals working at General Motors. But do you really think the hard-working auto workers at General Motors are so inspired by these Democratic politicians that they're flooding their campaigns with money? No. It's the executives and the business types at General Motors who are funding these campaigns. So, how much money did General Motors make last year? They probably didn't make anything if they're laying off all these workers, right? General Motors relied on its profit-rich pickups to drive $2.8 billion in pre-tax earnings in the fourth quarter of 2018, as it spent about $1.3 billion on restructuring moves that are expected to ramp up this year. The automaker reported a pre-tax profit margin of 8% on $11.8 billion of pre-tax profit. After taxes, the automaker made $8.1 billion on $147 billion in revenue. A company that just made $8.1 billion in profits is laying off 15,000 workers in North America. Let that sink in. 8.1 after taxes, and you're laying off 15,000 workers. And by the way, you're not just harming those workers, you're harming the teachers in those communities, you're harming the small business owners in those communities. General Motors and the employment that they provide are, affects small businesses who are not going to have customers because the employees are getting laid off. It affects the teachers whose students have parents that work for General Motors. It affects every part of a community. Yet, General Motors, no strings attached. They get $55 billion in bailouts. They could lay people off so they could gorge profits. They say it's because, people aren't buying smaller sedans anymore, so we have to get rid of those cars, and we're moving towards electric and all that. Well, obviously, General Motors could find a way to utilize these workers to transition towards whatever new products they want to make. But they're making a choice to cut the fat because workers are not human beings. And General Motors doesn't look at themselves as an actual corporate citizen. It's a soulless, corrupt company. I want to play you this clip from I believe it's the World Socialist website, but I thought it was very powerful. This was them in front of General Motors the other day.
I'd like to welcome everyone here today. My name is Larry Porter. I'm the former Chrysler worker, auto worker, and the Assistant National Secretary of the Socialist Equality Party in the United States. We are supporting the fight of auto workers and the formation of rank and file committees to oppose the job cuts and the difficult industrial and economic conditions that have been imposed on workers by the big three automakers and their suppliers. As any worker working in the auto plants know, and they rebelled against it by voting down the last contract, the automakers are making incredibly high profits from cheap labor. You now have 4 and 5 tiers of workers in any plant, with many temporary workers making poverty wages from a little above the minimum wage, doing the same work as the higher tier workers at $28 an hour. All of it agreed to by the unions. There's a changed mood of anger and rebellion in the U.S. and internationally. Workers and young people are looking for a way to fight against corporations and the policies of the government, which have created these conditions. With me is Jerry White, the editor of the World Socialist website Auto Newsletter, that is co-sponsoring the demonstration to be held at this location this coming Saturday, February 9th at 2 p.m. Jerry will explain the purpose and the aims of the protest. I simply ask that you hold your questions until after he finishes. Jerry?
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. This Saturday, February 9th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, the steering committee of the Coalition of Rank-and-File Committees will hold a demonstration right here in front of General Motors World Headquarters to mobilize working-class opposition to the massive job cuts announced by GM, Ford, and other automakers. The jobs bloodbath was initiated yesterday when GM began laying off over 4,000 engineers, technicians, and other white-collar workers. It also emerged that Ford will eliminate the second shift at the Flat Rock assembly plant, wiping out 1,000 hourly workers' jobs by April the 1st. Each one of these layoffs will be a personal tragedy, and the 15,000 job cuts announced by General Motors will be multiplied many times over when related industries are hit. This will have a devastating impact on workers' families and their communities in Detroit, in Lordstown, Ohio, Oshawa, Ontario, and many other areas. Look what deindustrialization has already done to cities like Flint and Dayton, Ohio, where GM has left nothing behind except economic, social, and environmental catastrophe. A new round of closures will mean more home foreclosures, more opioid deaths and suicides, and more schools and social services starved of funding. This is being done for one purpose and one purpose only: to boost the profits of General Motors and further enrich its wealthy shareholders through dividend payments and stock buybacks. Tomorrow, as thousands of white-collar workers continue to be laid off, General Motors will announce its 2018 profits, which will show billions and billions more. In 1979, during the first Chrysler bailout, the United Auto Workers told workers that concessions would save their jobs. That set into motion 4 decades of endless concessions and givebacks that have never saved a single job. In 2009, the UAW again accepted sweeping concessions, including halving the wages of all new hired workers. An organization like the UAW that accepts bribes from management, that has millions of dollars in GM stock will do nothing to defend the jobs and livelihoods of workers. That is why the steering committee of the Coalition of Rank and File Committees called the February 9th demonstration. It is not to beg GM, but to begin the mobilization of the working class in this city, across the U.S., and internationally to defend jobs and living standards. This initiative is being supported by the Socialist Equality Party and the World Socialist website Auto Worker Newsletter. All across the world, social anger against inequality is rising. As U.S. and Canadian workers are fighting GM and Ford, tens of thousands of Mexican sweatshop maquiladora workers are engaged in a courageous strike against the auto companies that feed the big three. 70,000 workers have set up their own independent strike committees to demand substantial wage increases. Now, we oppose the anti-Mexican campaign by the UAW and Unifor and call for the unity of all U.S., Canadian, and Mexican workers and workers throughout the world to defend the right to jobs. The Coalition of Rank and File Committees is determined that auto workers, whether they are white collar or blue collar, will not be the forgotten men and women of the 21st century. All of these workers belong to the bottom 90% of the world's population that produces the world's wealth, yet has no say-so over how it is distributed.
So that is, I believe, the World Socialist website. So you have General Motors, who bought off all the politicians, laying off 15,000 people in the Midwest, and then you wonder why the Midwest would vote for an animal clown like Donald Trump. Then you wonder why people like Donald Trump, a fake populist, is attractive to people having their jobs sent to China, Mexico, Poland, or wherever it's going. GM, $8 billion in profits last year. $8 billion in profits. So what's the first thing to do? Lay off 15,000 people. A little bit more of this.
Every worker has a great stake in fighting these plant closings and mass layoffs. We reject that General Motors has the right to close these plants and impoverish the workers who made their profits. We insist that the right of the working class to a secure and good-paying job must come first. And we are confident that the power of the working class, united and acting on its own independent initiative, can stop these plants from closing. On Saturday, we will be assembling right here in front of GM headquarters. All workers, retirees, and young people, the unemployed, are welcome to participate. Bring delegations from your factories and workplaces, schools, and communities to make your voices heard. To get involved and get more information, go to wsws.org/auto. Thank you very much. And I'm more than welcome to take any of your questions.
So then you don't believe the UAW is doing the right thing?
Well, the UAW has a four-decade record of boosting the profits of the corporations in the name of supposedly saving jobs. And in that period, since 1978, the number of jobs in the big three have fallen from 750,000 to 150,000. So we have no belief that the UAW, which, as I said, owns General Motors stock, actually, the stock of General Motors increased the day they announced the shutdowns, and the assets of the UAW increased. So this initiative is being taken by rank and file workers themselves. The steering committee of the Coalition of Rank and File Committees was founded here in Detroit on December 9th. It includes rank and file auto workers from Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. It includes teachers, Amazon workers, and others. And we are fighting. We see this demonstration as the beginning of a very powerful counteroffensive by working class people.
So there you have the socialists doing what the Democratic Party should be doing right now. Standing up for workers. Standing up for the workers being tossed out like hot garbage by the corporations that are taking your money. Because who paid for General Motors bailout? Tell me, who paid for that? Certainly wasn't the billionaires. Certainly wasn't the billionaires who paid for General Motors bailout. It's disgusting. The whole thing is disgusting. So even though I'm excited to go on the road and cover this, I'm not excited for people losing their jobs. But it's not just like there's no reason for these layoffs. They're giving these talking points. Oh, people aren't buying the sedans anymore, so we're just not selling them, so we have to get rid of these workers. But in the same breath, we're shifting to more electric cars. We're shifting to more automated vehicles. Well, why can't these workers work on those cars? Why can't you shift these workers to work on other cars or other developments within GM? That you can. They're trying to cut the fat because they need more money to their shareholders. They need more money for stock buybacks to drive up the share price, and they are greedy. Because in this country, corporations do not give a damn about their workers, and it's the workers who are creating that $8 billion profit, not the executives.